For decades, superheroes, vigilantes, and even supervillains have been gracing us with their presence on the silver screen. Comic brands such as Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Legendary, Image, and many more have given us some of the best and most memorable characters in cinema history. Films such as these have given us an escape and let our imaginations run wild. Tonight, we put on our capes, we pull up our tights, and maybe even pull out our lantern ring as we provide quite the cliffhanger because life is an endless series of train wrecks with only brief, commercial-like breaks of happiness, and nothing will make us happier than to welcome you to the comic book movie draft. This is a Comic Talkers production, and you are listening to Just for Flicks. What's going on? It's your boy, Patty B. With me, as always, is Mr. B-Dog, Mr. Brandon. How you doing? Are you flying high through the sky?
Not as high as you, buddy, but we're going to get through it. But I'm excited because this is my realm of stuff too. And out of our two things, I love comic books. I love comic book movies. But we are joined by two great guests that you will see later on in the month in a trivia showdown against Patty B. First off, I want to welcome my fellow comic talker on the podcast. You know him as Hillbilly Comics and Invincible's plot armor. Please welcome for the first time actually on the podcast, Bryce. Bryce, how are you doing?
Oh, doing great. I know this isn't comic book related, but something I just wanted to point out here. Either of you guys ever see the show Blue Mountain State? Because Patty B, you were emitting some serious Thad Castle energy just now. I want you to know that.
Yeah,
is that the guy who plays Reacher now?
Yes,
yes.
Who has been in multiple comic
probably the
book
haircut.
productions.
Yeah,
So
Hawk.
full circle.
Yeah. He was Hawks in what was it?
Hawk in Titans, and he was Aquaman in Smallville.
Yeah.
Now we know him as Reacher, but you hear the other voice, my from other podcasts. You know him as Big Daddy L on the Pulling These podcasts. Please welcome back to the podcast, Elmer. Elmer, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to be back.
Absolutely. We had
another
to
draft.
We had to bring you back for another episode, man. Come on now.
It felt like it feels like deja vu because I swear to God, we already did this podcast. We already did this topic.
We did an episode like that on Comic Talkers where we ranked top 10 DC movies and top 10 Marvel movies. So if you guys haven't checked that out, and Elmer was also on a top 5 characters that deserve their own comic book spot.
Gotcha.
But we want to do the draft concept. So as always, our drafts are snake drafts. So we're going to be choosing positions with the roll of a die. Pat has his 20-sided die on him. What he's going to be doing is making us or roll for us. Whoever gets the highest number will get to pick from 1 through 4. And that's their spot from here on out. And it'll go from the highest to the lowest number that is rolled. We're going to be doing snake draft, so it's 5 rounds. We're choosing 5 of our favorite comic book movies. Once they're off the board, they are off the board completely. Nobody else can choose them. Let's go right into it, though.
Yeah, so with the dice roll, I think we're going to pop Bryce's Just for Flicks cherry tonight and have him go first on the dice roll.
Yeah, I feel special.
You should, bud.
You have an NFL draft logo behind you at this point.
I do. I really got into the spirit.
You just needed the football hat, and you could have been like, "Yeah, I'm."
Yeah, why I went baseball, I have no idea. I think it was to match the Kent Farms T-shirt.
All right, let's get this going. All right, so that's not your number. I'm gonna roll it right now. Okay.
Okay.
20.
Oh, beat that at this point.
Can't beat that because that's as high as we can go. All right, Elmer, we're gonna go with you next.
Shenanigans.
That is a first on Just for Flicks. That's fun. 20.
How many bucks? It'd be funny if we get 3 in a row.
Oh, B-Dog, let's go. What you got, bud? 4.
Yeah. Bullshit.
3.
All right.
You guys want to have a dice to the death?
A dice off right now. I'm good either or.
We'll go with Bryce for the dice.
Kill. No.
Bryce for the dice, yeah. 12. That's,
12.
respect-
Okay.
that's a respectable number. 7. Not
Seven.
lucky
Elmer's like,
tonight.
no.
Lucky number 7.
All right, so Bryce will get to decide where he wants to be put in the draft. Remember, you go first, you're not going to have another pick for about 6, 7 picks.
Yeah.
So where would you like to be placed?
I'm going to pick second.
You want to do second? All right, Elmer, you're next. Where do you want to be placed? 1, 3, or 4?
I'll go with 3.
3. I get to choose next. I'm going to go 1. I'll take first.
I'll go 4th.
Yeah. Well, you don't have no choice at this point.
All right, Brandon, let's get it started. Let's not insult me anymore. Chop, chop.
Patty B.
Oh, at this point, I think there's only one that I would put up on this conversation. To me, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It is a staple in comic book movies completely. I went and watched this opening night when I was 12 when this movie came out. I'm going with The Dark Knight. This is, to me, by far, I think, the best choice for number 1. We get one of the most iconic opening scenes in comic book history, even in movie history, with the bank robbery. We get the Joker's introduction. We have Two-Face going from being Harvey Dent, being the other hero of the city, with the hero that Gotham deserved, instead of Batman being the hero that they kind of were stuck with. You see the hero become the villain, and we see Harvey Dent in his ascension to Two-Face. And to me, by far, it's the best Two-Face we've gotten, even though that's really not talking much because we've only had one other up on the screen, and that is Tommy Lee Jones that everybody wants to forget. Dark Knight, to me, Heath Ledger's performance alone deserves praise because this guy pretty much put his life up for this role and did a phenomenal job. Still the best Joker I think we've had on screen to this very day, even over Mark Hamill, especially over Jared Leto, especially over Joaquin Phoenix.
That opening scene's amazing too.
The interrogation.
With
The
the
opening
bank robbery?
scene.
Oh,
Yeah.
the heist? Yeah.
Yeah, you're stealing
So-
from, right?
I am very openly not a Joker fan, but
Mhm.
one of my favorite lines from the Joker that I think Heath Ledger really embodied was, I can't remember what comic it was in. I want to say it was maybe The Killing Joke, but when the Joker told Batman, if I'm gonna have an origin story, I at least want it to be multiple choice.
Yes, that is. I believe that was The Killing Joke, if I'm not mistaken. I think
Heath
exactly.
Ledger just took that
Red line right there.
Yeah. Or I love, still one of my favorite scenes is when he goes to the hospital and he visits Two-Face.
Hi.
Hi.
What kills me about that scene is the fact that Harvey didn't recognize him until he took off the mask.
Exactly. Like, dude, you don't see the makeup? Like, what's going on?
And then what was it? And then that whole scene afterward where he bombs the hospital, and that's all improvised. That was all, him doing that. It made me feel like Dexter's Laboratory, where you sit there trying to beat the button, and then all of a sudden here comes the hospital down, and then they have to run. So it's just a fun scene. It's still just a very iconic movie to me. So I'm gonna go over to Bryce for his first pick.
So this might be blasphemy in the film community, but I don't care. Because I'm gonna say that my favorite comic book movie and my first pick of the draft is an MCU movie. And it's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if that movie didn't go off the board.
So one of the main reasons, Brandon, I've said this a million times on Comic Talkers.
Mm-hmm.
What is one of my favorite character archetypes?
Lovable dirtbags.
And no character, especially in the MCU, in my mind, embodies that archetype more than Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah.
And just the way that James Gunn was able to write and direct a movie to have me physically weeping in public over a CGI raccoon. On top of that, you get this swan song for this team and these characters that we've known for nearly a decade at this point. I'm a sucker for endings. I'm a sucker for, good conclusions, good send-offs, things that make me wish I had more time with the characters and more time in that part of the world. And I don't think there's been I can maybe think of one or two comic book movies that have impacted me the way that Guardians 3 has. And The Dark Knight isn't even one of them. You want to talk about like top tier villains? High Evolutionary.
Yeah, that was a very slept on villain.
And my first pick, it's a classic. It's Spider-Man 2,
Josh
directed by Sam Raimi.
Nice.
Raimi. Uh yeah, and this is I believe is the best film of the trilogy, in my opinion. Everything from the story arc that was going on between Peter's character, him and Harry, him and MJ. You know, you had the Parker luck thrown in there, which everybody loves seeing Spider-Man miserable for some reason. It had that for that demographic of Spider-Man fans that want to see Peter miserable. You know, had a great villain in Doc Ock.
Oh, I love Doc Ock.
Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Alfred Molina was great in the role. I was so glad when he came back for No Way Home.
For Molina's amazing.
I don't think Ock is as good in my eyes as Green Goblin, but man is he up there.
Yeah,
Man
yeah.
is he up there.
And it was tragic too. It was like someone that Peter looked up to, like could have been a mentor for him in the science world that was just like bad luck just made him into a villain right there. You know, one
Alfred
bad
Molina,
day.
Alfred Molina, he's a actor of range too, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
that dude is in one of my favorite I guess one appearance scenes of all time where he's the drug dealer in Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
I mean, flawless, dude. I
Yeah,
know
he was
I love
great in
him
that.
as Doc Ock though. He's fantastic
Well,
for
it's a
In-
step
sure.
up too. I think
Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, he was there
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
well, yeah,
Right.
his first movies too. That was to say, it's an awkward role for him, but it fits him for some reason. But I think too, if any villain can really be made into a very sympathetic arc, I think that's Doc Ock. I think Doc Ock really can. It's like you said, he's Peter's mentor. He can
Yeah.
be somebody that Peter looks up to.
Mhm.
But that's why I said I love how, like you said, No Way Home brought him back, and I still love those scenes with him and Toby. Like,
Yeah, like
who
you
better?
cared about that character and him and Peter's relationship. Even after all these years, you still like, yeah, like this is what I wanted to see.
Like I'm not gonna lie, of all scenes in that whole No Way Home movie, when Peter or Tobey Maguire's Peter and Doc Ock come up face to face again, I weeped. I don't know why. I think it was just that callback as a kid watching that movie, and now seeing it as an adult, it's like I'm doing better. I'm trying to do better. And it's just that it's just good nostalgia, and it makes you smile that they actually get to have one more moment before eventually his death in in Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
But no, it's a great pick. I'm glad I had that was gonna be my next pick and nobody picked it up. I was like,
yeah. I was like, let me see. You're already taking out the Dark Knight, so I was like,
Match
all
it up real quick.
right.
so
That's what I wanted to do with Guardians. I originally wasn't gonna pick it number one, but I didn't want anybody but me snatching it up.
all right. So we're gonna
That was a bold choice there, Bryce. Bold choice.
yeah. Let's see if Pat follows suit. Is he gonna choose a bold choice or is he gonna choose the right choice?
Oh, you know what? I got a little nervous when Elmer said his title of his movie because I was like, it's kind of going in that same direction. But since he didn't grab the one I was gonna grab, I appreciate that, Elmer. By the way, I know you weren't helping me out in any way, shape, or form. I am gonna go with the very first Sam Raimi Spider-Man because that holds near and dear to my heart. I remember going to the theaters to see this. I remember having the video. I think there was a video game that came out like right after the movie came out. Dude, the summer of 2002, always in my heart, man. No, this movie is fantastic. I think Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin is one of the best comic book villains portrayed in a movie as far as character goes and the actor playing that character goes. um you get to see a young James Franco as Harry Osborn, which I think is kind of perfect for that role. And then you got the teenage heartthrob, Kirsten Dunst. Who doesn't love Kirsten Dunst, right?
I think you're the only one because you're the only one that will admit that he's watched Bring It On.
I love Bring It On. I will die on that hill. All right.
You only watched it because
You guys don't have spirit fingers, obviously, and it shows.
Not at all.
No,
not at
but
all.
I think this movie is perfect in every way. I love the cameo of Macho Man Randy Savage as a lifelong wrestling fan, Bonesaws ready. Like how do you not get hyped up about that, bro? It's one of the best cameo scenes in cinematic history. I'm sorry, I will say that and I will die on that hill. But
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
3 minutes of playtime. Yeah. Um but no, man, it's just I love also the concept, the what was I gonna say, the first concept of the costume when he's finally creating Spider-Man and gets bit by the spider and all that stuff. And I don't know, I just love that. But like I said, it doesn't have a bad part in the movie. I think it flows very well the way it goes. I love all the fight scenes between Peter and Green Goblin. Very great. I mean, in my opinion, I always like the little gadgets and gizmos that the Green Goblin has, right? For his weapons. He's got the throwing knives, he's got the little bombs and everything. He's got a badass glider he just gets to terrorize people with. It's fantastic.
But I think the only downside with that, and I think as comic book fans, I did not like his suit.
Really?
It looked like a Power Ranger. Like a villain, the Power Ranger.
2002.
Hey, it's still like, okay, this is something like you ever watch Jingle All the Way? Remember the
Yeah.
little parade scene, and you have Sinbad as the villain, you have the guys underneath him.
Yeah.
That, to me, is what Green Goblin looked like. You see him in this green looking outfit, and it's like, see, I liked how they did it in No Way Home with him, but he was still like, you could still see like it's not really the costume that made him, it's what
Performance, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys see the alternative costume they had for him when it had like the goblin face with animatronics and all that stuff?
Ooh.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Yeah,
See, Green Goblin especially, his lines in that movie and the
Yeah.
delivery. Like I don't know about you guys. I'll sometimes just because I feel like doing the voice, just say some of Green Goblin's lines. Like if I'm just writing something down or if I just say one of Green Goblin's lines.
that's a nice trick.
Back to formula.
Yeah.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
You know how much I sacrificed?
Yeah, it's a great movie. That's why I said like I think my favorite scene in that movie too, what was it? Is actually not one that people think of it's when he gets his name.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Bruce Campbell who is the one that gives him the name in the movie.
Oh my gosh.
Human Spider. He goes, that's terrible.
Oh,
Spider-Man! And it's like, no, that's not my name.
Also, we have to mention
I-
the Thanksgiving scene.
Oh yes. Okay.
That was an intense effing
It
scene.
is, right? When the blood is dropping and he hears it. Dude,
And
crazy.
the fact that they're wearing each other's colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It was so good. It was the tension. The
Harry is
tension in
like-
that scene was so great.
Harry's wearing one color from each.
We can't forget J.K. Simmons' role either.
J. Jonah
Oh.
James.
J. Jonah Jameson, man. Like,
Going back
The
to Elmer.
best live action comic book casting of all time, and I will not be hearing any alternatives.
all right, with my second pick, I'm going with the classic. You know, there's been a lot of renditions of the superheroes movies, modern versions of it. And I think when you go back to it, I think some of the best work that's been done on this character has been done way early on. I'm gonna go with Superman, the very first Superman from 1978. It's
Took
Christopher
one of my picks,
Reeve.
Patty.
I had a feeling because I know you've mentioned it before, and I'm so glad I got to pick it. 'Cause, no, this movie is fantastic. This movie, when I was a kid, whenever it would be on TV and I saw it on TV, like, I definitely gotta keep it on for a few minutes. I think Christopher Reeve is one of the best casted Supermans of all time. I mean, I don't think anyone can disagree with me on that part. Other than Henry Cavill. I mean, Henry Cavill's great, don't get me wrong, but I think Christopher Reeve is the one that started it all. It's what started his career. Um, and then Gene Hackman. Gene Hackman's amazing in this movie. Throughout the whole franchise, in my opinion, as Lex Luthor. This movie also, I think it was for when it was made, it had never before seen special effects, it was kind of innovative in its own right. Um, I think Marlon Brando being in it kind of gave it that legitimacy to it just a tad, just him being in that movie. I know Gene Hackman was already a well-established actor at the time,
Yeah, but
but
that's
having
Brando.
yeah, it's Marlon Brando. I mean, you come to my Krypton for money, for murder.
I think that's why I could not take him seriously in that role. Is when you watch The Godfather, and you watch something like that, it's like you cannot sit there and he's like, you know what's on?
Apocalypse Now, I think, came out like a year before this movie came out too. So he had just done Apocalypse Now as well. But no, I just like I said, I love this movie. I love that opening or the not. It's not an opening scene, but it's when he's a kid and he lifts up the truck, and he shows them like how powerful he really is. Like, and he's this little kid picking up this truck. Like it's awesome. I love it. It's a feel good movie for me. Um, I know some people have that debate of the second one being better, but I think this one is just more. It's just classic. You can't go wrong with it. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly on the Christopher Reeve casting. He is my second favorite actor or my second favorite Superman casting ever, and my favorite in a movie.
Hmm.
I would put him behind Tyler Hoechlin, but
Ooh, okay.
other than that, he is the greatest performer to ever wear a Superman costume. It's just it doesn't get much better when it comes to Superman on screen because it captured the spirit of what it means to be the character. It leaned more into him being the man of tomorrow rather than the man of steel.
yep. Yeah, and I love his transition of Clark Kent, into Superman, he's like a perfect Clark Kent and he's a perfect Superman. Like,
I think
I
in
don't know.
that movie, it's got my favorite Lois and Clark moment where Superman comes to save her for the first time. It's like, you got me, who's got you? And it's like, and he just flies her up onto her little balcony again. It's like, don't do this again, please. I don't want to do this. And then it's like, and I just love Christopher Reeve as it. I think by far, like Christopher Reeve was a good casting for Superman. Gene Hackman was my only thing. I was like, he's okay as Lex. He isn't my favorite, but even then, I don't really think we've gotten a great Lex other than in the animated shows.
Oh, they're gonna say Jesse Eisenberg.
Michael Rosenbaum.
I'll give you that. Michael Rosenbaum was good. I do like him, but I think just like when you hear Clancy Brown, you look at the animation version of him. I think that spells Lex to me.
Oh yeah, no, I'll give you that.
Right. And my second pick, this one was a tough one for me, but I'm going with Captain America, the Winter Soldier,
Yep.
as my number 2 pick.
I figured that was
Do I
good.
just need to give you all the rest of my picks or something?
I knew this one was gonna be on a lot of people's list, probably all you guys, but yeah, this was a vast improvement of the first Avenger. The Russo's brother showed us something different in the MCU. Uh, it was the spy thriller that we weren't really expecting it to be. Everybody was great in it. We had the story like I was in the theater and when people were actually shocked that the Winter Soldier was Bucky, which was great, to experience in the theater because not everybody's a comic book fan, but everybody saw the first Avengers, so that really struck a chord with the audience. So that was a great theater experience. I had a lot of fun with that movie. The acting was great. The characters that they introduced Sam Wilson. My man Gary Shannon, rest in peace, had a little cameo appearance as a secret Hydra agent. Great all around film. I just wish Marvel would have, kept on with the different types of genres in their movies based on what we saw with Captain American and the Winter Soldier. They tried it with other movies, but it wasn't as good, and I think as successful as this movie was.
Well, it's a movie I think Captain America needed, because the first one, it was kind of like how Captain America was in the 40s. It was a character that was a propaganda kind of tool. It was a character that inspired hope and, encouraged the soldiers. But you needed something more modern with him. And I do really think they did a really good job adapting the Winter Soldier storyline. I think it's by far
Oh yeah.
it to me, and I know Elmer, you and I have discussed this too. It is by far to me still the best, if not one of the best MCU movies ever made. It is a great movie, very methodical. It doesn't evolve around superpowers. It's straight up more of a government conspiracy. And along with having Captain America and Black Widow being the two, I think it kind of solidified Black Widow a little bit as more of a character instead of just a side character in Avengers. She kind
Oh
of
yeah.
grown here a little bit.
Winter Soldier is my number 2 in the MCU after Guardians 3. Absolutely. It's fun fact, if you guys ever want to see the prototype, what I consider the prototype for Captain America the Winter Soldier, Community season 1 episode 23, the paintball episode.
Yeah.
Also directed by the Russo brothers. But yeah, no, the Winter Soldier,
stuff.
having read a large portion of the run it was based on and the story that it was based on,
Mhm.
it did whatever great adaptation should do, in my opinion, which was make me not only have an appreciation for the adaptation as an art form,
Mhm.
but also a deeper appreciation for the source material. And you don't get a lot of that anymore.
Well, I think there's another thing I want to bring up with that movie too is Robert Redford. Robert Redford played
Oh,
a
gosh.
great Alexander Pierce. I think it shows that a villain doesn't have to have superpowers either. He could just be the guy that's manipulating the whole situation. And I think that's why I like the Cap movies more, because every villain he has went up against has manipulated the situation. You think of Baron Zemo, same thing. It's what led him to do what he does to the Avengers. Same thing with Alexander Pierce. He pretty much separates Shield.
Even Red Skull.
Yeah, Red Skull did the same thing. It's so great to see how his villains are more methodical and more thinking and more strategical than most villains that we've seen in the MCU.
So for my second pick, we're gonna go back into the Spider Realm for a bit. And we're gonna take something that, even though I'm glad, I was hoping it would be available when it came my time to pick again. I'm shocked nobody's picked it. And that's Spider-Man Into the
I
Spider-Verse.
hate you. That's
Oh.
going to be the next pick. I was hoping you did.
Maybe I was gonna strike a nerve with B
God
Dog.
damn it, Bryce.
Listen. You want to talk about not only an achievement for comic book movies, but just an achievement for cinema in general and for just the theater experience in general. I think and I'm gonna make this claim. You look at the 3 pillars of innovation when it comes to comic book movies: Superman 1978, Avengers 2012, and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Nobody did what this movie did when it came to animation. Nobody had tried to tackle the multiverse in quite this way yet, let alone do it well. And getting introduced to a character like Miles, who, somebody that grew up with Peter Parker, I didn't know who Miles Morales was. I didn't have any prior experience with Miles Morales, and I would imagine a lot of people going to see that movie for the first time also didn't have a lot of experience with Miles Morales. And so walking out of that theater having a deep appreciation for characters that I didn't care about 2 hours ago says something about the product that you put out. And Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I actually enjoy a little bit more than Across the Spider-Verse, just because Across the Spider-Verse is an incomplete story. Just that's another movie I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times within the past year or two, easily.
I am gonna go. This is a movie that I feel like I'm actually gonna make Mary somewhat happy because I'm the first person to choose a mutant movie.
Don't you dare.
I'm going with Logan. Logan, man, I don't even want to hear it. You took Spider-Verse from me, buddy. He turns off his camera. But
Gosh.
Logan is by far one of the best. Well, I wish it would still be considered one of the best send-offs in comic book history. Adapting Old Man Logan, I really love Hugh Jackman in this. You could tell he really deeply cared about this character and really wanted to send it off with a good note. I love Laura. I love Daphne Keane in that role. I think she's fantastic. I love that Patrick Stewart even comes back and reprises his role as Charles Xavier. I love that it's a deteriorating Charles Xavier, that Logan is pretty much taken under his own control to pretty much try to take care of him. It's the first movie I feel like with Logan or with Wolverine that you really get to see him at a peak. That's why I was glad it was rated R. I was glad it wasn't PG-13 because with Logan, the Old Man Logan especially, you cannot make that movie and not make it rated R. It is a very, very violent comic and it's a very violent movie. It's a great, well done job for Hugh Jackman. Great send off for him. I'm sad. That's why I was disappointed with Deadpool 3 when they announced they were bringing him back. And I was like, how is this going to work? Like, how are you going to bring Logan back from the dead? Unless,
Multiverse.
or they just go, oh, yeah, we're going to capture you 10 years before you die. No.
If Ryan Reynolds doesn't make a retcon joke in Deadpool 3,
What are we doing? What are we even doing if he doesn't do that?
then why am I even here? I want my money back.
But my third pick, Elmer knows exactly where I'm going with this one because he knows this is one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite scores of all time. I'm going with 2002, not a movie that most people think about as a comic book movie. Pat knows because Pat just watched it not too long ago for the very first
I
time.
already know where you're going.
I'm going with Road to Perdition. I enjoy this film a lot. It is a great film for what the comic book adapts to what the movie shows is like two completely different stories and points. I still enjoy the movie. I feel the movie does a really good job really telling the story about Mike Sullivan and his son after his family's pretty much murdered by the Rooney family. It is a very solid movie. If you love 1930s, if you love gangsters, you love Tom Hanks, this is a very underrated role for him. I think a lot of people tend to forget about this role with him. This is a stat catch. Actually, to be totally honest, Bryce, you even talked about one of your favorite Supermen, Tyler Hoechlin. He is in this movie as Michael Sullivan Jr. He is the kid of Tom Hanks. And Paul Newman's in this film. Daniel Craig is in this film. Jude Law's in this film. This cast is stacked with great actors. It's a great story. Elmer, I know we've talked about it in the past. What was it? What was your memories with this movie?
I mean, I was surprised how good it was. I wasn't expecting too much from this movie when I first watched it, but like you just listed like all the actors that were in this, and they were all phenomenal in this. Daniel Craig, before he was Bond, before he was a big name, was like a great villain in this. Everybody in here, Stanley Tucci was great. Also, it was just a great film overall. Like I really like the ending was so tragic, but at the same time, it was like you were hopeful for the kid growing up. Like he'll become a better man because of all all that's happened between him and his father on that trip when they were on the run.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think too, one of my other things, and Pat, we've talked about this too, is I love the shots in the film.
Oh, dude,
Sam
yeah.
Mendes is iconic for his shots. And
Mhm.
one of my favorite scenes still is when he gives Rooney like his kind of like his fine, like they're after their last talk, and Rooney goes out in the rain to his car and he finds out the driver's shot. And he knows he's about to meet his end. And just seeing the iconic Tommy gun shots just coming out of the dark, out of nowhere. And all
With silence. There's silence.
and it's just the music. The music is
Yeah.
Thomas Newman by far. This is one of my favorite scores of his. Road to Chicago is a great song. I love that one. I love the death scene of Rooney because I think that song is just really like it flows with what Sullivan is feeling. Sullivan does not want to kill Mr. Rooney because Mr. Rooney he's always looked up as a father figure, but at this point he has no choice. That's still one of my favorite kill scenes, and it's funny because when Nitty like finds out Mr. Rooney has been killed, he finally agrees that Sullivan can kill his son Connor. When he goes into the hotel room and he goes into the bathroom, just see it's like a face of disgust from Tom Hanks, and he just shoots him 3 times. And that scene where you see the door come in and you see how he's killed execution style in the tub is phenomenal shot by Sam Mendes. And it's just really well done. I enjoy that movie. So yeah, we're gonna turn over to Bryce for his third.
So going from this what sounds like a decent or a pretty good crime thriller gangster movie, I'm gonna shift in a completely different direction. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but my last couple picks have been some more unique comic book movies in construction, in tone, and I'm just gonna fully double down on that. And I'm taking Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah, there you go.
Ooh. All right.
I adore this movie.
I love that movie, man.
Who's your favorite ex? I have to ask.
Great pick.
Lucas Lee. Lucas Lee. Although it's hard not to at least find Vegan Todd entertaining.
My
The only one that I find annoying is Matthew Patel.
I can see that.
But it's Edgar Wright. I'm a huge fan of Michael Cera.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
going back to Arrested Development, super bad, and especially Scott Pilgrim. I cannot see. I'm glad they brought all the original cast back for the animated show that they made on Netflix because I cannot see anybody else as Scott Pilgrim other than Michael Cera.
I think Scott Pilgrim, when this was announced that this movie was happening and Michael Cera was announced for it, I think that was perfect. I think that was
Oh yeah.
thing. I don't see anybody else playing that role at all. So I agree with you. When they announced the Netflix show, I was happy because it's like, okay, now they're bringing the main Mary Elizabeth Weinstead's back, Michael Cera's back, everybody that we know and love from the movies. This is one of Mary Elizabeth Weinstead's first big roles too. Like she was in a couple
Hey,
movies.
don't be dissing on Sky High now.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying like one of her first like biggest roles came from this. I like when you really think about it, you think Ramona Flowers, you think now
Yeah.
Hera from Ahsoka. There's a lot of roles that you know her from, but this was kind of one like Sky High is great. Don't get me wrong. I love Bruce Campbell in PE clothes, but you know what? That ain't always gonna happen. But or Kurt Russell and
Oh yeah. One of the more underrated roles in that movie too. Uh, talk about a scene stealer, Kieran Culkin
Yeah,
as
Yeah.
he was great in
Wallace.
that. Yeah, he was hilarious in that movie.
Oh my gosh. And that's probably one of the most under the radar comic book movies that I've ever seen. If I could ever convince someone to watch any comic book movie once, it's Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
And let me put it out there for fans too before we go over to Elmer for his third pick. When you guys read the comic, do not read the color version. Read the black and white.
I have only read the color version. I like the
why I say that is like the jokes where I swear her hair was blue. It's more funnier when you go read black and white because you don't really know truly what the colors are or what's going on. I think the black,
That's fair.
yeah, when you
I'll probably read the black and white eventually. I just thought the color, especially coming off of. So I read the comic last. I watched the movie first, then I watched the series, and then I read the comic.
Mhm.
Coming from the adaptations, the color version it's seamless.
Well, it is because it's more it's known for the movie. It's supposed to pop off the page, but when you get the jokes, it's not as funny in the colored version than when it is in black and white. because it's the whole thing of the imagination peaking too. You're supposed to imagine what it's supposed to look like too. So I think that was the other big thing. But let's go to Elmer for his third pick.
All right, my third pick. I'm just gonna keep it blockbuster movies. I think my last two are gonna be like the little smaller films, but I'm have to pick up Infinity War here with my
Yeah.
pick.
There you go.
The big three. I had to get the big three on there.
Good pick right there. That's a solid.
Infinity War, man. That movie was just from the beginning to the end. This movie had you like glued to the screen.
Oh,
Like that the beginning scene with Thanos just destroying the Asgardians and just giving Hulk the only two piece and just like beating his ass without even using the stone. Really, he was just beating the Hulk's ass with his own power, which was just
Thanos is gonna do Thanos shit, right?
yeah. I mean, from that scene, from opening scene, the death of Loki, to like half of the heroes just vanishing from the face of the earth. This movie had everybody's emotions going through the ringer. I saw a little boy cry as Spider-Man was turned into dust next to me. I was like, don't worry, kid. He's going to come back. It's all right. They always come back. It's comic books. It's all right.
Well, I think what stunk too is because they announced shortly after they were going to do Spider-Man No Way or Far From Home, and it was like, you just
He was real far from home at that point.
yeah. At
Yeah.
that point, it's kind of like, well, you just kind of spoiled he was going to come back.
Yeah, I remember it was like a lot of people were saying, oh, maybe it's a prequel to Infinity War. Maybe this happened before this movie, la, la, la.
It's like,
It
no,
was like Marvel's marketing was kind of suspect at the time. And I mean, some
That's
people knew all these characters were going to come back. They weren't going to stay dead. So
I love how Thor Ragnarok kind of blends right into the start of that movie, right? I mean, when it ends right into that movie, basically.
right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's
Infinity War was interesting too, because I remember I saw that with my dad opening weekend. And me and him both looked at each other after the movie and we were like, what just happened? Because neither I hadn't read Infinity Gauntlet at that point. He isn't a comic book guy, so he hasn't. But yeah, we both just kind of looked at each other like that's the end. Like what just happened here? What's the deal?
I think the best thing about it is first time we've ever seen really in a comic book movie period that the heroes lose. It's not a simple, oh well, the heroes lost, just like the Dark Knight again, or the Dark Knight Rises is a good example. The hero does lose, but he comes back. We don't know what's going to happen until they ruined it with Far From Home. Because at that point, then we knew he was going to come back. There was no ifs, ands, or buts at that point. We know our heroes are going to come back and they're going to be beloved and everything again. So it's one of those things, like it's the first time you really see them all lose, like Gamora loses. That was a very emotional scene when you see Thanos throw her off. You have, it's just so, I'm glad they didn't show us Xandar's destruction. I'm kind of glad they kind of kept that monotoned because I think that kind of sets up Nova a little bit more, where you could have that scene of Xandar's destruction and maybe them, whoever it's going to be, become Nova. I think it's a great option for them, but Infinity War is a great one. That's why I said I'm glad that was chosen on there. I'm glad it was chosen over Endgame. I'm going to put it that way. So
It kind of
I got a
edges
soft
out.
spot for
I feel
Endgame.
like it edges out Endgame in terms of storytelling, right?
I know some people look at that as like a whole big movie. When you really look at it, it really is. It's a continuation. It's not an ending of a story, or it's an ending of that story.
Mm-hmm.
Like in reality, it's like when you really look at which one was better, Infinity War was the better one. I feel like Endgame, even though it was more nostalgia filling, I feel like it was one of those like they rushed too many stories in it and it just had to work and it didn't really work well.
Well, it's the Star Wars formula.
Right.
You know, if you view Avengers 2012 and Age of Ultron,
Mhm.
they both have complete stories. So they kind of occupy that New Hope role.
Uh-huh.
Infinity War is Empire.
Empire Strikes Back. I was literally just gonna say that too.
There's I think a lot of the reason that people remember their experience with Infinity War so fondly is that it's all build.
Mhm.
It's build and build and build and build and build. And just when you're reaching the climax of the movie, it stops.
Right.
And it's not that it drops. It's not that you drop off from that experience. You're just left at that peak.
You're like, oh, where do we go from here? You know?
Yeah.
was-
and so where Endgame answers that question, Infinity War built up so much that I think people were going to be disappointed with Endgame regardless.
Right.
Kind of like Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Now let's turn it over to Patty B to go over his number 3 and 4 picks.
So my number three, my number three is
It's number 2. No, that's my number 2. Oh my God.
number three is gonna be a childhood. I'm kind of sticking with nostalgia for right now, since nobody wanted to pick this one. I'll gladly pick it. I'm going with the second. I'm going with the second Tim Burton installment of the Batman movies. I'm going with Batman Returns.
Whoa, brave choice there.
I
You
think
know-
that's braver than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I
I regret
absolutely love
nothing.
this movie. I've always been attached to it. I love, just the little nuances, the cameo, the hands. I love the cameo of Paul Rubens in the beginning. It's awesome. I love just cast is just stacked, man. Absolutely stacked. Got Christopher Walken in it. You got, Michelle Pfeiffer, who's a fox as Catwoman. Um, and then you got, of course, the return of Michael Keaton as Batman. And then you got Danny DeVito. But I've always been a fan of Michael Keaton's Batman, other than the whole stiff look, that can kind of
Well,
go
we've
without.
talked about that on our podcast.
Yeah. And you really brought it to light with me, before I never thought about it, but he's looking, he's just like,
Well, yeah, when you look at his kicks, and I know Elmer and I have talked about this before too. When you see how he moves his face, and on top of it, how he punches, it's like, "Ugh." It's like it makes you look like he's Adam West, "Ugh."
All stiff. All
All
stiff. Not selling at all. It's just all stiff.
yeah, dude. And honestly, I'll be honest, the fight scenes aren't the greatest at all, but they are what they are. I love the sets, though. I think the set is what really brings out the magic in the aura of the Tim Burton feel. It's a good movie, man. It really is, especially if you're a 90s kid as I am, you grew up watching this movie. It's just nostalgic 101, dude. I love, and you know what another thing is too? It's a pretty badass poster. Iconic movie poster,
Oh yeah. I've never seen either of the Tim Burton Batman movies. That's kind of my biggest
Yeah.
movie blemish.
Uh-huh.
But the posters are sick.
Yeah,
You
the
need
posters are
watch
badass.
them. Please, at least watch them once.
Yeah.
I'll watch them
I know Elmer, what was it? We've talked about that before, that the movies really, when you really look at the context of Batman 1989 and Batman Returns, it really hasn't aged well. When you look at all the other stuff, like we said, Batman being stiff, how the villains are portrayed, they were iconic for the time, but when you really look in reality now, it's not really all that.
Now, listen, I could see Frank Reynolds as a Batman villain to this
Yeah.
day.
Like what was it?
Man.
It's just one of those movies I enjoy. I enjoyed 90.
Glad you picked up on that, Elmer.
Yeah. There's very frank like qualities that the Penguin has in this one.
Oh,
like
yeah. Oh,
yeah. He's a
And-
disgusting guy.
Brandon and Patty, since you guys had no reaction, I'm gonna say, if you haven't, watch Always Sunny.
It's Always Sunny in
Always
Philadelphia.
Sunny in Philadelphia.
I know.
Danny
Incredible.
DeVito's great in that.
Oh yeah, Frank. Oh yeah.
Right.
Not diddle kids.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, brings me up to Danny DeVito. As I feel like he was kind of perfect for this role, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Dude's creepy. I think he brought out the creepiness in Oswald Cobblepot, which is a bizarre name, dude. Way to name
Yeah.
get that, dude. You really did him some favors, didn't you?
Worse than Edward Nigma.
Edward Nigma is a saint. I like that name. I'm gonna name my kid now Bryce just because of that. I'm naming it Edward Nigma.
Is he a
Enigma.
saint? Is he a saint as much as Dorothy Mantooth is?
Oh my god.
It's a hard Anchorman
All
reference
right.
for no one that's everyone
Let's
that's
go to your number.
Wait, hold on. I've heard that. What? I know that reference.
Did you
I
take her
know-
out to a nice seafood dinner and never call her again?
I gotta look up what that's for. Hold on.
He's gonna drive him
Yes,
crazy
I
now.
love how he's perplexed right now. I'm gonna go. So wait, you want me to go to my number 4? I'll do it real quick. This one's gonna be short and sweet. This one is also pure nostalgia for me. Actually, you know what?
You want me to tell you before we go to that?
Yeah.
You want me to tell you what the reference is from?
Anchorman.
Yeah, it is Anchorman. Dorothy
I figured it out. Yeah.
Mantooth.
Vince Vaughn. Hey, Dorothy Mantooth is a saint.
Love that movie.
Oh man.
You know,
He's
this
crazy.
one, my next pick is another strictly nostalgic pick for me. I grew up watching this movie with my brother. He had it on VHS, and I'd always sneak into his room and we'd watch it because my mom didn't like me watching movies like this. It is a Marvel comic movie. It probably got a lot of flack when it came out, and it doesn't really hold up today as much as it should. But I'm going with Blade from 1998 with Wesley Snipes.
What? What did you just say?
Blade still holds up to this.
Yeah, Blade's still a
I feel like
classic,
some people,
brother.
I
Not-
love it, but I feel like a lot of people like talk shit about it.
Well,
Like,
let's put it this way. If you would have said Blade Trinity, then we could understand where you're coming from. Blade 1 and 2 are iconic.
Oh, incredible.
Who are these bastards that are bad
I don't know, man.
I think it's the area that he lives in. It's in Tennessee.
maybe, dude. Like I've seen a lot of TikToks on people just shitting on this movie. I've never understood it. I love the intro scene when they're in the club and it's just raining blood everywhere. Like, dude, yeah. Doesn't that have
That was a
sandstorm?
great.
That's like one of the best openings too in a superhero
Yeah.
movie. When you see Blade just go all off.
I love Chris Christopherson. I think that was an awesome casting role to put him in this as, you know, his right-hand man.
Right hand man back.
I knew you were gonna say that. And also Stephen Dorff as Deacon Frost.
Yeah.
As you know, as the
Yeah.
villain. He's good. He's really good.
Yeah. No, that movie it holds up still.
I just
Motherfuckers always trying to skate uphill.
I love, like I said, I'm picking it for a reason. I think it holds up.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. You know, my wife will roll her eyes while I watch it, but
I
will
just
watch
laughed at Elmer's reaction. There's like, what? What are you talking? This is blasphemy here. Like,
Yeah.
No, I got so upset the other day. The great Rob Liefeld, quote unquote, wasn't trying to give Blade its props as being one of the first comic book movies in the late '90s to get people in the mainstream audience into comic book movies again, because he's claiming that Blade was never marketed as a comic book movie. It was always marketed as a horror vampire movie type of thing, which I think is bullshit because everybody knew Blade was a comic book character. Spider-Man anime series, man, like, so for him to say that, I was like, come on, dude, you give Blade its respect. It was the first comic book movie before X-Men that came out that got people interested into the Marvel universe.
I think it's overshadowed, and I think you bring a good point because when you really think about it, people always credit X-Men as being like the first comic book movie that got people into comic book movies, but in reality, it isn't. It actually was Blade. It was. At least we're not saying it's a god awful Fantastic Four that was supposed to happen in 94, 95, and we never got.
No, we don't talk about that one.
We don't talk about that. That's
rest in peace, Roger Corman. He just passed away recently, but yeah, that movie was purely just to keep the rights.
Now I have to ask you though, Pat, which brother?
What?
Which brother?
What do you mean, what brother?
Paco or Nick?
Oh, Paco.
I figured.
I grew up with Paco, so
I could see Paco having this.
yeah, no, he's like I think once he listens to this, he'll be very happy I picked it. No, but Wesley Snipes, I think this is one of his best roles ever. besides Simon Says and Demolition Man. It's just another personal favorite of mine.
White Man Can't Jump.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, White Man Can't Jump. Yes, of course, but I don't know why
How can you
Demolition Man.
not like him in
Silly ass
Expendable
movie,
3?
dude.
Anyway, but let's go to Elmer for his fourth pick.
All right, my fourth pick is it's funny because it actually is a vampire movie. It's gonna be 30 Days a Night.
There you
It's
go.
I think it's an underrated horror film, and a lot of people didn't know it was based on a comic book also. But that film was watching that film for the first time and seeing a whole bunch of vampire movies before that. I was never terrified of vampires till I saw that movie because they were so ruthless, so evil. Like there was no humanity in them at all. The way they just slaughtered everybody in that town without any mercy. How they were playing with their prey, pretty much playing with their food before they just killed them off. Everything on that movie had my eyes glued to the screen. The ending could have been better, but overall, it was a. I felt like it was a great movie that doesn't get talked enough about nowadays.
I agree with you there. I think that's a great pick there. Now, let's go to Bryce for his fourth pick.
So for this one, I'm gonna take a comic book movie that was not based on an American comic. It's actually based on a French comic.
I know exactly where you're
It was
going.
adapted by a Korean director for the American audience. I'm going with Snowpiercer.
I figured that's a great pick.
Bong Joon-ho. That few directors working today worldwide that hold a candle to his work. And Snowpiercer is easily one of my favorite sci-fi movies, one of my favorite comic book movies, one of my favorite movies in general. If any role of Chris Evans were going to beat out Captain America, it would be Curtis in Snowpiercer.
Yeah, I was surprised how good that movie was when I watched it for the first time. And Chris Evans was just like great in it. Like the
Oh
whole
my gosh. Tilda Swinton too.
yeah. Ed Harris, you know. I know how baby tastes like.
That scene.
Yo,
Oh my
that seems so
gosh, that
crazy.
scene.
Oh my god.
And then when they reveal why Curtis and Edgar are so close.
Oh man. Great movie. Everything about that movie was so great, and at the same time, you're like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." Like, I would hate to live in this situation.
And then they made the show, and I'm like, I can't get into the show as much.
No,
I didn't even bother. I didn't even bother.
Yeah,
It's good, and David Diggs is great. I love David Diggs.
and then you also had Jennifer Connelly in that as well, which is it's
The
hard.
movie just felt like such lightning in a bottle, though.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Now I have back-to-back picks, and this one's hard because I had 4 picks, and I'm going to
Swear
take
if you take both of mine that I'm considering.
I left 2 of them off, and they're both DC films. I actually left off the Suicide Squad from 2021,
Ooh.
and I'd left off Blue Beetle, and that's
Ooh.
actually become a really great movie in my eyes. I've actually really loved Zolo as Blue Beetle, as Jaime Reyes. I love the fact that it's not Ted Korg as Blue Beetle, but Ted Korg is still out there, kind of thing. So it kind of gives you that Hank Pym, Scott Lang situation from Ant-Man. But
Also
I'm going
gives
with
him an
2. I'm gonna
opportunity- Also gives him an opportunity to figure out Jason Sudeikis' availability because I
think he'd be
I will stand true that he needs to be Ted Cord.
He does. But here's what I'm going with. I'm going 2 movies that are not even main comic book company movies. One of them is purely because I love the nostalgic feeling of it. Not only that, I love the score from James Horner in this movie. Going
Okay.
to Rocketeer. The Rocketeer.
No.
I love this movie. It's not the best comic book movie, but I enjoy the campiness from Disney and Disney trying to get into the comic book world of it all. You know, I love the Rocketeer itself. Jennifer Connelly's in this film. Alan Arkin is in this film. Oh God, I can't even remember his name. Dalton. I can't remember his name. The dude that
Timothy
played
Dalton.
Thank you. Yeah, we know him now in Doom Patrol, and we know him as the one. I think he only played in one James Bond movie, one or two. You didn't play in a lot of them. That's what.
I think it was two. He was in two of them, I think.
Yeah, because then Pierce Brosnan took over after. But the Rocketeer is just a fun. It's fun, nostalgic. I enjoy the movie. James Horner's score for this is iconic. It's the one thing that does really lift this movie up even more. James Horner does Titanic. He does a lot of iconic albums, and to me, this is one of my favorites. I can sit there and listen to this whole score over and over again because I just love that story. My last one was actually my first. It can be considered horror, but it's more action horror. I know, Bryce, you probably won't like me talking about this one, but it is Hellboy. I'm not going to go too much
Hey,
into.
not my pick.
I know Hellboy is one of those movies I love. I love Ron Perlman in this role. I think that was perfect casting for Hellboy himself. Abe Sapien, Doug Jones is amazing in this film. This was really like my first like horror movie I was allowed in my family side. It was looked at as horror. It was really one of my first movies I was allowed to watch, and I actually really enjoyed it. Ron Perlman I've actually had the honor of meeting Ron, and to be there in front of him, it's iconic. One of the things I actually have in my room is the Samaritan. I do have the pistol model of his pistol. I really enjoy that. It's one of my prized collections. And I just really enjoy this movie entirely. I love Rasputin is the first villain that he has to face, which is iconic because that is one of the first villains he faces in the comics.
Like the Rasputin?
The Rasputin.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Rasputin.
His
Not the
resurrection
song
scene was
Rasputin,
great.
but it kind of gives you a sense of how Hellboy came into the world. And I love the whole joke that he's a demon and he's Catholic. There's different things that come out of it that's just really funny to watch, but it gives you that nostalgic feeling that you are watching a Mike Mignola film. What you're watching is. I think it's one of the only movies that really kind of stuck to the comic a little bit more than most. But the Ron Perlman movies are fantastic. Don't watch the bullshit 2019 one they try to do. Because
Hey, listen, Ron Perlman.
It's-
Even though I've not seen him in much, him just in Drive
yeah,
sold me on Ron Perlman. And as far as like the demon who's a Catholic, like, I mean, I'm a Nightcrawler fan, so I might have to check this out.
Hellboy is at least worth it. I understand there's comics in the run that are a little bit more satanic. There's a lot of more things that happen. But Hellboy alone is just he's a fun character. You wouldn't think of him like, oh, well, he's not. You would think of him when you see him like, oh, wow, he's going to do bad. He's actually kind of a funny character to see. Like you see like how much he respects his teammates, but you just love the banter he gives back to them. I love when he pulls out the dead body, he can talk to the dead. And he sits there and he puts the dude up on his shoulders. He goes, "You can actually speak dead." And he goes, "Well, I am demon. I do understand this." And like he'll tell him to like F off and stuff too, because that is why Ron Perlman does such a great job. That is Hellboy to the T.
All right, so talking about some movies that it was hard to leave off. We get Blue Beetle, The Suicide Squad, Shazam 2019,
Yeah, that's hard.
Avengers 2012, Iron Man. But ultimately, one of my roots, when I have two roots, or really three, as a 2000s kid when it comes to comic book movies. You got Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and the X-Men.
Mhm.
But that initial trilogy, as much as I love it, I do need to go with an X-Men movie, and that X-Men movie is X-Men First Class.
Oh wow. Okay. I'm shocked that's the X-Men movie you went with, but okay.
I've probably watched First Class more than any other X-Men movie, except Logan.
Even over X2, because to me that's
Even over X2. I love Nightcrawler, but I don't think he gets enough focus in that movie.
He's still got
I
best openings too in the comic.
oh yeah, absolutely.
That's
But
same.
as much as I love openings, I'm an ending guy. And that scene on the beach with Charles and Eric and Sebastian Shaw with the coin,
And the
Oh,
Cuban
man.
Missile Crisis on him.
and yeah, and the oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
I think
the
that
fir-
got the best theme for Magneto to this day. I love that iconic theme. I think it's Henry Jackman who did that theme, and he hit.
Michael Fassbender just absolutely killed that role, and
You know,
it is the only time I have ever thought that they've gotten a Summers brother right in live action with Alex Summers.
Yeah.
Because as a Cyclops fan, while I've liked the actors they've cast for Scott, I've never liked the characterizations much.
Mhm.
And First Class, I think, other than the Darwin crap, we don't talk about Darwin.
We don't talk about Darwin. No.
No,
The,
no.
the writers really blacked out on that one. The
Yeah,
writers
no,
like let's kill off the guy who can really die.
He's not indestructible. What are we talking about?
other than the Darwin stuff though, I enjoyed getting I never would have put Charles and Mystique as a pair, but I enjoyed getting to know their relationship. And, again, Sebastian Shaw, the Hellfire Gala. I think they did Emma Frost kind of dirty.
Yeah, we don't talk about January Jones in that film because
Yeah,
that,
but for the most part,
that was
even though there were characters that were done dirty, even though there were scenes that I would redo, I still will put on that movie from time to time and just be absolutely enthralled.
I think why I kind of give crap to the movie, and it's not because it's a bad movie. We get Michael Fassbender, we get James McAvoy's Professor Xavier. I think for me, why I give that movie so much crap too is because I feel like where they failed is some of the stuff that happens in between. We don't really know from what happens in between First Class and Days of Future Past. We just know.
Oh yeah, no, I'll give you that. I don't think it really holds up as well as a trilogy, but as a singular movie,
Right.
First Class is just it's First Class.
No pun intended.
I-
Now we go to Elmer for his last pick.
Oh man, this was a hard one for me, guys. Came to the conclusion that it doesn't look like I'm including any mutants on this list. Because my last film will be the film that started it all, in my opinion, with the modern superhero genre, and that is Iron Man.
And there you go.
First one, the best one of the trilogy, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
Robert
100%.
Downey.
I don't think there's no competition there with that.
Yeah,
one. Like,
yeah. I mean, Tony Stark is gonna be forever associated with Robert Downey Jr. Even though probably the next 5 to 10 years, they probably recast him anyway. But he was just great in this film. This film was like a great surprise to a lot of people. People weren't really expecting anything of this film, but the acting in it really saved it. The special effects, when they actually used a practical suit for the Iron Man suit, actually had Robert Downey Jr. inside the suit in this one, which was great. Yeah, I just enjoyed that. The whole like the beginning of the movie sets you up with his platoon getting ambushed in the desert, and all that. The action was nonstop. It was just a great movie. This guy Jeff Bridges was a great
I was
villain.
gonna say Jeff Bridges is
was
awesome.
fucking awesome in that movie.
Tony Stark was able to
Yeah.
build this in a
cave with a box of scraps.
Yeah.
scraps.
I love
The
it.
Even though
pause-
he was like cracking, he was cracking on the script, saying the script wasn't too good, but he made it work with his performance. So
Being very undude.
Well, I
Yeah.
believe there was like a theory about that too. Like he almost left because he didn't like the script, and they made
Yeah.
him improvise some of the scenes, and he actually did it and actually worked really well with it. Which we
Yeah.
already know Jeff Bridges can be a great improviser if needed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
William,
He made it work. Whatever they gave him, he made it work. He was a great villain. The
right.
fight at the end was awesome. The way he beat him, like being smarter than staying. Like fixing the freezing problem before he became Iron Man, and this guy couldn't figure out because he is not as smart as Tony Stark, which I thought was a great way for him to be defeated. But yeah, this movie pretty much set everything up for what we have now.
Yep.
Marvel, DC, it's all because of this one movie that just won a lot of people over.
But I agree with you with what you said that nobody was expecting anything from this film because this came out the same summer as another big superhero movie, The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
It came out all in 2008. And again, it was a movie that everybody was looking at The Dark Knight because everybody loved Batman Begins. Everybody loved what Christopher Nolan was doing with this franchise. Everybody wasn't really putting Iron Man because of the drama too behind the scenes. Because, like we said, Robert Downey Jr. was coming off all the crap he was dealing with too. I
Well,
believe
and something I don't think a lot of people realize. I don't know if a lot of people had faith in Marvel at the time. Because if you look at their 2005 to 2007 stretch, as much as I love those Fantastic Four movies,
Me too.
they weren't very well received.
well, the first one was
2007,
second one was bad.
well, we don't the Galactus cloud aside.
We don't talk about the Galactus Club.
Is the second one the Rise of the Silver Surfer?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're both good movies. Personally, I don't think they're
don't-
great. But I think they're good movies.
Silver
But
Surfer.
2007 also gave us in the same year Spider-Man 3, which again, guilty pleasure. I love it. I love it. It's actually the first Spider-Man movie that I consciously remember coming out.
And you came out unscathed.
I was 6. And another movie that I love a lot less, X-Men: The Last Stand.
Yeah, no.
Both came out in 2007. So
Yep.
if you're Marvel in 2008, you can only go up.
We only loved Kelsey Grammer's Beast. That's all we cared about that year.
In the Last Stand,
Kelsey.
yeah.
So I'm gonna end this one with a feel-good movie. It's also a deep cut. I feel like a lot of people don't associate this with being a comic book movie, but little do they know it is. I'm going with the classic from 1997. I'm going with Men in Black.
That's a great.
Okay.
I love this
If you said
movie.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, we would have ended this podcast right away. I would have edited this podcast out.
So the game is on. Um,
Long live the Queen.
um, the iconic duo of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones is unmatched. The second one's good. Third one's poo poo.
And they made 4 too.
Did they make a fourth one? See,
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did. They did.
They didn't.
They did Back in Time, but that was the one they went back in time. Then they made a 4th one it wasn't with Will Smith though.
The third one is when they go back in time because the
Right.
second one is with Johnny Knoxville and
Right.
Rosario Dawson.
And then the 4th
No.
one they did.
Brandon.
Well,
They're
There's only 3. We don't remember the 4th.
There's only 3 of them. There's only 3 of them.
You don't count the Chris Hemsworth one.
Because the third one had the saving grace of Josh Brolin
Yes,
That's
as
good.
a young K, right? A young
as
Agent.
a young Agent K.
Yeah.
Find out that there was a history between him and Will Smith's character at a young age, with him wiping out his memory.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the fourth one, it's like what was it, an Avatar: The Last Airbender? It's like there is no war in Ba Sing Se. There is no fourth Men in Black movie.
now, but the Men in Black one, I'm glad you brought that one up because I think people do forget that was a Malibu comic, if I'm not mistaken.
Aircell.
It was Aircell.
Ooh.
Okay. I thought it was Malibu, but yeah, that's even a deeper cut.
Yeah, Aircell comic. Like I said, this movie, the cast is fantastic with Vincent D'Onofrio, Linda Fiorentino, who was a well-established actress at that point, 80s actress. But yeah, and then Tony Shalhoub as the gun dealer. I love him. They just shoot him in the head, and then he grows a head right back. It's fantastic. Rip Torn.
I was just about to bring up Rip Torn.
Yeah, give me a goddamn roast beef sandwich. Oh, that's a Freddy Got Fingered cut, but still.
That's
Can't
I
forget
think
David.
Rip Torn's absence in the third movie too really made it take a hit.
It did. It
Yeah.
did.
He's one of just the iconic characters you see in the movie. He is like he's a even though he's not in the movie much, he's
Mm-mm.
still every time you see him, it makes you laugh. It makes
Yeah,
you enjoy
and
it.
he's got that iconic voice too, right? Like his voice is very
Well, he's Zeus and the coach of Dodge or the average Joes for a reason.
yeah.
That voice.
I like the little not it's not a cameo, but David Cross is in it for a very small amount of time. And I think, this is right around the time where David Cross was in Small Soldiers. As you know, Brandon, that's one of my
God, why
favorite
you even
childhood
have to
movies.
keep on bringing that movie up?
I love that movie, man.
Everything is better with David Cross.
Dude, David Cross is awesome, man.
It's just, it's another movie with Kristen Dunst in it, and that's where I know where his obsession comes from with that movie too. Kristen Dunst is in it, of course, man. Not
Yeah,
David.
that's the late great Phil Hartman's last movie, right? He's great in that movie too, man. Anyway, back to this. I love the whole sugar water bit. I think that's what stems out of sugar water. Um,
Vincent D'Onofrio right there, buddy.
yeah, man. That's like I said, this movie is so well put together. I love the score in the movie too, like the music or the theme behind the Men in Black. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I
Well,
love
kind
that
of
intro.
Oh, that's the theme you were talking about. I thought you were talking like here come back.
Oh yeah, that one's good.
That was
Galaxy.
Danny Elfman, right? Danny Elfman scored the film, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah. Yep.
I can-
Um, I love that intro scene with was it not? It's not the one with Tommy Lee Jones, but it's the one with Will Smith while he's chasing that guy up there, and the guy's like, "You don't even know what you're getting yourself into," and he turns into an alien and he jumps off, and it just kind of gives it this suspense and this feel for how the movie goes. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. You know what
But
my
yeah,
favorite scene in that entire trilogy is?
what's that?
The scene in Men in Black 2 where Jay is trying to like help Kay remember and they go to the locker civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The guys that smoke the cigarette. I know that's not it, but
The aliens, the little scrawny
The
aliens.
little
they're
itty
smoking the
bitty
cigarettes. Yeah,
aliens,
man.
and they like worship the watch.
You want me to tell you something though about Pat's picks?
Or not like the business card is like is it a business card? It's some kind of card. They
So-
they celebrate it as like a creed.
Yeah. It's you want me to tell you something about Pat's interesting picks? 3 of your movies are scored by Danny Elfman.
I didn't even put that
Spider-Man
together.
2002,
Okay,
Batman Returns,
And Men in Black.
man knows how to make some comic book
and
music.
you have
music,
Superman
bro.
is scored by the iconic John Williams, and Blade is actually scored by Mark Isham. So that I was just looking, I was like, Pat's got 3 Danny Elfman films on his list.
Didn't even
Well,
try.
you're a big Tim Burton fan.
There you go.
But before we end this podcast out, let's ask this question. Is there a comic book movie that you go, absolutely not? I will never choose this in 100 years.
Dark Phoenix.
Right away. There we go. What about you, Elmer?
One movie that I wouldn't touch at all. Any of the Sony films.
Even Spider-Verse? Come on now.
Nah, Madam Web.
Thank God. I'll let you do you one better. I'll go Morbius.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Morbius and
That too. I still haven't watched any of the Venoms, so I'm
Somebody
good.
doesn't get them.
One's decent. Venom 2 gets a little out there. But at least
I was gonna here's an unpopular opinion of mine. I love Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Ooh,
uh,
ooh.
well, I think
I got a lot of pushback on that one because I posted something on TikTok about the meme of the dude tossing the guy in like a karate move.
Yeah.
I'm like, every time somebody tries to tell me Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a great movie, I just like, get the fuck out of here.
Here is my defense of it. Here's my
Okay.
defense.
Go ahead.
It is not a great movie by any means. The villains are not good at all. And
Fuck the Rhino.
yeah, that Electro Green Goblin, terrible. Absolutely terrible. The entire third act of that movie, if they cut it, I would still love the movie just as much. The third act adds nothing to me other than the Gwen scene.
Mm.
Other than the
Yeah.
Gwen scene. But as far as movies to feature a live action Spider-Man, I don't think a movie has gotten the Spider-Man character right more than Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still hold true that Andrew Garfield is, in my opinion, the best live action Spider-Man.
And
Yeah,
then
he got a bum deal with those
And then
Sony
Patty, maybe
films.
what do you think?
He could have,
What-
with better material, he would have been a great Spider-Man. My
Mm.
thing with that movie, it was like the first Spider-Man movie, because I love Spider-Man. I watched all the movies in theaters up to that point. And that was the first Spider movie when I was like, when they revealed the Green Goblin, I was like, I'm not paying for this shit, because this shit is like
I did.
everything that was wrong with like all this, like this shit was like Batman and Robin for
Yes.
Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You had Jamie Foxx as fucking Edward Nygma from Batman Forever. The same character, the same fucking character from Batman Forever. Jamie Foxx played the Rhino.
Yeah.
Of
Paul
course, we
Giamatti,
talked about this
I'm
plenty of
sorry,
times
that is
already.
not a role you should have ever taken.
Yeah, they wasted that dude who played Harry Osborn and made him into this horrible Green Goblin thing, and
It was just
you bypass the whole Norman Osborn thing, and then you find out that they were gonna set up a Sinister Six movie after this, and Norman Osborn was gonna come back from the dead, but he was just a head. His head's still alive, and it was just like all this crazy shit coming out from his universe, and I was like, I'm not watching this theaters. I actually watched the movie on a plane going to a wedding. And I was like, I had nothing else to do, so I was like, let me just watch this. The Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker stuff was great. They had
Oh,
great
yeah.
chemistry. You could tell they were going out at the time. But besides that, this movie was garbage. He was a great Spider-Man. I love the fact that he was like doing those creepy movements, like crawling on dudes' backs like a spider and all this other shit. So that was cool, but that movie was horrible.
Well, and then there was the scene at the end too. It was the scene with the Rhino, where
God.
the kid ducks
yeah.
under the police line, and
Yeah.
other than the Rhino, because I gotta be honest,
bring
when
up a Rhino,
when I
man.
saw Paul Giamatti in the
Wow.
in the Rhino suit, again, the 2000s kid in me expected Frankie Muniz to just pop out of somewhere.
That's exactly what I was just about to say too. Is that at
Is that a
that
big
point?
fat liar reference?
Yes, it's
Yes,
a
it
big fat
is.
liar.
Marty Wolf, dude. One of the best antagonists of all
No,
time.
it's not. That's like saying you always saying the dude from Heavyweights is the best antagonist in the
Because he is.
killer. It's real.
Clearly, you've
He
never
w-
Percocized.
Listen.
Now,
We all know that the best antagonist ever is the father-in-law from Over the Top.
There you go.
I'm glad we did this conversation. Thank you, Elmer, for coming on the podcast. Please tell the fans where they can find you.
All right, guys. You can find us on most socials at Pull the D's. Facebook is at Pull the D's Pod. Check out our YouTube channel, Pull the D's. We're on there also. Podcast is on on Spotify, most podcast apps. You can find us on there. And yeah, that's where you can find us.
And Bryce, other than on the Comic Talk podcast, where can the fans find you?
Mostly on TikTok. You can either search up at Hillbilly Reading Rex or just search up Invincible's Plot Armor on TikTok. Sometimes I'm on Instagram at Hillbilly Comics. Otherwise, I just kind of hop around, pop in and out wherever. So if you wanna see me out there in the ether, just stay on your toes, I guess.
And Bryce will be on some more of our podcasts here coming up soon. So is Elmer. So please tune in. They have a great trivia showdown coming up soon. So that is going to be a fun video to release. Also, Elmer is on a couple of our other podcasts, like ranking the top 10 sports movies, to some later on videos as well. Bryce is on a couple more coming up with us with top 10 or top 5 DC animated films, along with the trivia showdown. So always check out J4F Podcast at Instagram, TikTok. Check out our podcasts on Spotify. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to Patty B to take us out.
Hey, thank you, Elmer. Thank you, Bryce, again for joining us tonight. I had fun. I'm glad I got to broaden my horizons with the comic book movie spectrum. And this was an eye opener, and I'm glad we got to talk about some movies that don't get talked about enough. So, without further ado, remember we do it just for flicks. Bye bye now.